What's up, everybody? So look, let's get into this one, man. So let's talk about this Benavidez and Morel fight. What kind of a fight this is gonna be, the breakdown, all of that shit. I wanted to talk about something before we get into all of that shit, because I had seen a couple of people in the comment section of my last videos. They were talking about how, oh, you got to give Morel credit for making this fight too. You know, they were saying like Morel also made this fight. Yeah, and that's very true, bro. And I have given Morel a lot of credit for wanting to step up and take this fight. But at the end of the day, it doesn't compare to the credits that you got to give Benavidez, bro, because people act like Morel gave Benavidez a shot. You know, nah, it ain't nothing like that, bro. Benavidez is the one taking the risk here. Benavidez is the one that's taking on this very dangerous fight unnecessarily, right? He's just doing it to give us, the boxing fans, a great fight. And people got to see this shit, right? See, this is like, you know what this kind of reminds me of, man? When Canelo was supposed to give Benavidez his shot. And Canelo, you know, we all know that he ducked him and shit. But this is kind of the same thing, bro. Like, Benavidez is kind of sending a message like, look, man, this is how boxers should be moving, you know what I'm saying? Because Morel is the upcoming guy and like a boogeyman, right? Like, Morel, he looks like the real deal. And is, well, I was gonna say, is he the real deal? We're gonna find out with this fight, but I don't want to say that, bro, because even if Morel were to lose to Benavidez, I could still see him doing big things in the sport of boxing, man. Maybe possibly getting a rematch with Benavidez further on down the road when he's got a little bit more experience, you know. But like I was saying, bro, this is Benavidez showing like, hey, man, this is how boxers are supposed to move, bro. Because Benavidez, this is kind of like, well, what would you guys have said if this fight were to have dragged on, right? Benavidez ain't give him a shot. Benavidez were to, you know, get a couple of belts up there at 175. Morel becomes a mandatory, and then, you know, Benavidez is out here ducking him, right? And then people are calling for Morel like, oh no, Morel's got to activate his mandatory and all this shit. You know what I'm saying? Do you guys ever think about that shit, bro? Because I be thinking about that shit all the time, man. Like, when in the history of boxing has somebody ever put so much damn pressure on a fighter to activate his mandatory, bro? That's how pathetic this shit has gotten, you know. And with Benavidez taking on this fight right now, like, nah, Morel ain't even the mandatory. Benavidez ain't have to give him a shot, but he did it anyways, bro, just to show you guys, like, hey, this is how a true champion is supposed to move, man. This is how a true fighter is supposed to move in the sport of boxing. And, you know, I just wanted you guys to think about that shit, right? Because just imagine that shit, bro. Like, people in the future calling out Morel to activate his mandatory to fight somebody like Benavidez or some shit like that. It's just pathetic as fuck, right? But look, let's break down this fight, man, because this is gonna be one hell of a fight, bro. We all know this shit. I know, I see it in the boxing world that a lot of people are thinking that Benavidez is gonna run through Morel, bro, and I don't think so, man. I keep telling you guys, bro. Morel doesn't have the experience, but Morel is special, bro. He's athletic as fuck. And, well, there's a lot of things that come into play, right? I want to say that he's special from what I seen from him in his fights, but then now behind, with all these steroid accusations, could that be the special factor that comes into play with Morel? And if so, if you guys seen in his last fight with Hot Rod, you know, a lot of people think Hot Rod actually beat Morel. And could it have been because Morel is finally, if he is on steroids, right? That is, I'm not saying he is, so don't take that shit the wrong way. But if Morel really was using some PEDs, and of course, I'm pretty sure in that Hot Rod fight, he had to get tested, bro. Because it was a big ass event, so I'm pretty sure they tested him. So he was probably off of that shit, and that's why maybe he didn't look as good as he usually looks. And then in this fight, he is getting tested, right? So that's a big what if factor, you know what I'm saying? Because what if Morel was relying on that shit in the majority of his fights, and that's why he looked extremely good? And leading up to this fight, this is going to be the biggest test of his career, man. Like, Morel he's taking a huge leap in this fight from the fighters that he normally fights, right? So with all that coming into play, man, and if he was on some PEDs and he has to get off of that shit, and now he's got to go into the biggest fight of his career without his magic juice, like, you know, this is going to be hard. It's going to be hard times for Morel, man. But that is the what if factor, right? Now, let's say he's not. He's a clean fighter, and he is just super athletically gifted and all that shit, right? This could give Benavidez some problems, bro, especially in the early rounds, man. This is where I see Morel banking in a lot of these early rounds and maybe even hurting Benavidez, bro. Like, what I'm trying to say is that if Morel has a shot to beat Benavidez, I think it's in the early rounds, you know. But who knows, right? Who knows if Morel is gonna box, if he's gonna go in there, try to hurt him, jump on him early or some shit, because that's kind of how he fights, bro. He likes to get people out of there early. But I don't know if him going up against somebody like Benavidez, he's gonna try to do that same shit, right? But we're gonna have to see, bro. It all depends on these guys' game plan. But you know, as far as the boxing side of this thing, bro, you know what's funny to me is that Morel, he called Benavidez a RoboCop, right? And Morel's always bragging about his footwork and this and that, you know, the Cuban style of boxing, his footwork. But to keep it real with you guys, man, and I want you guys to leave it down in the comment section, man. Please answer me this question, because I'm curious if it's just me picking up on this shit or maybe you guys see it too. You know, Morel, bro, in his fights, he fights really flat-footed, man. I don't really see too much fancy footwork from Morel in his fights, bro. Like, not as much as he likes to brag about, you know. Or I don't know if it's just that he likes to fight really flat-footed, or he hasn't had to show his footwork or something. But in most of his fights, bro, he ain't flashing no fancy footwork or none of that shit, you know. He showboats a lot. He'll do like the Ali shuffle here and there and shit like that, but that ain't really footwork. That's just showboating, you know. And I'm not trying to say that Morel doesn't have footwork. He does have some decent footwork. Like, from what I see in his fights, it's just like footwork like any other good boxer has. Actually, man, I think Caleb Plant has better footwork than Morel from what I've seen in the fights, you know, from what I've seen in the film study. So, I don't know if in this fight maybe we will see that footwork that Morel likes to brag so much about, you know. But I do think that Morel is gonna come to box, bro. I don't think he's gonna be trying to trade with Benavidez. He's probably gonna try to fill him out and this and that. But I do think that he's gonna try to box maybe 2 to 3 rounds, man, and then I think he's gonna start trying to put some pressure on Benavidez in the middle rounds to try to get him out of there, bro. Because I don't think Morel is gonna want to let this fight go into the later rounds. If you guys start seeing this fight carry on into like the 7th and the 8th, you could almost assure that it's gonna be a Benavidez win. You know what I'm saying? I think Morel's got to try to stop Benavidez in the middle rounds. And as far as Benavidez, you know, I think he is gonna put pressure on Morel since the get-go. Not no dumb pressure, bro. He's gonna put some, you know, some smart pressure. And yeah, man, I definitely think that Benavidez is gonna try to take him into the deep waters and drown him, bro. I think I've even heard Benavidez say this shit, you know. And I mean, if you just know the way Benavidez boxes, bro, you would think that this has to be his game plan for sure. You know what I'm saying?